Just look at that. Jeff is setting the scene for you here. The sun is out, the blue sky is shining. I certainly don't need my waterproof trousers on, so we will fix that for tomorrow. But I've been joined by Mitchell Spearman, golf coach, coaching Daniel Chopra, who's in the field this week. He's kindly got a couple of clubs here and we're going to work through a few things. But first of all, Mitchell, it's an Open Championship first and foremost, so what's the first thing that the players change in the bag?
I think their attitude is the first thing. You come here, the weather conditions are going to be varied as we see today. Your tee time, if you're in an early time or a late time, obviously that will be it. So I think the first thing is your attitude. You just got to go with the flow. You can't fight it. That's the first thing that's vital if you're going to have a good championship.
And while you talk about attitude, before we get on to the mechanics of the game and the swing, what for the mentality of the game? We spoke to Paul Casey earlier and he said he really thinks that what's between the ears is what's going to count this week.
That's right. I mean, Tom Watson was quoted not too long ago. He was asked the question, hey, why did you win 5 Open Championships? And he said because he could deal with bad bounces. He actually liked them. He liked the fact. And that just means you've got to be tough. You've got to be tough. You've got to have an attitude that if you get a bad break, it's not a bad break. It's just the way the ball rolls and the way it flows. And I think players that sometimes don't have form can find a game on links golf because it's such a natural way to play. You think less about your swing. You just get more into the feeling of the conditions and you play a bunch of different shots.
That's interesting. So we could see some outsiders come through the field this week then.
Sure. I mean, I think that's what's great about it. It levels the playing field as far as, it's not the guy who's maybe always going to hit the most fairways and the most greens. It's the guy who's going to putt well, chip well, and really the guy with the attitude, the one that just stays upbeat the whole time and stays in the present when they're hitting the shots.
Okay, so number one tip from our resident coach, Mitchell Spearman, is get the right attitude. Number two, before we get on to the short game, we're in the same area that we were earlier with Mark Rowe. We're just the other end of the short game chipping practice area. Let's talk about the clubs in the bag. We caught up with Ian Poulter earlier. He said he's got his 2 and 3 irons in the bag. I can't tell you how brand new they look. These clubs look like he's barely ever hit them, but they're going to be key ingredients this week.
Sure, I think the first thing you do when you get here is you want to get a feel for the golf course, and obviously these guys are realizing some of the fairways can be a little bit narrow. They want to put the ball in place. They're using long irons, hitting a lower shot and making sure that they do that. They feel that that's where the most important club needs to be. Maybe it's not a hybrid out of the wood this time. Maybe you maybe need the lofted wedges for getting out of the bunkers, but you might get rid of so-called your gap wedge. So you play around a little bit to find the right makeup for yourself here.
Okay, and I've got to ask you, we've just had Monty in this studio and a bit of a controversy, I suppose, but he gave us a few names when I spoke to him earlier that he'd fancy this week. Didn't pick Luke Donald. Some people have asked why, and he says he thinks Luke will find it hard because he doesn't drive the ball very straight, but he's not a long hitter and he could do with getting the extra yard, so he'll want to use the driver, but you've got to be straight at Lytham.
Yeah, I think that's a good call because if there was a weakness in Luke's game, it maybe is that he isn't the most accurate of driver, and we know he's not a super long hitter, but he certainly hits the ball plenty far enough. And you've got to have a good driving week if it's going to happen here, because I've just been out there on the course and the rough is pretty thick. It's there's a lot of chop outs back to the fairway.
Well, it is indeed. And you mentioned Luke, you mentioned his driving. One thing he is fantastic at is his short game. And here we are. You've got a 9-iron in your hand. Do you want me to hold on to the putter for a minute?
Sure. We'll use both of them.
Okay.
The thing about links golf is there are no hard and fast rules. You see the shot and you hit it. You don't have to play a sound wedge. You don't have to play a bump and run. You don't have to play the Texas wedge shot. You can do whatever it is that you want to do and what feels that it has to be right. What's different here is that the fairways tend to be almost as fast as the greens because they're cut and they're quite fast. So you can putt. We're a long way off the green here, maybe 10 or 12 paces, but it would be absolutely fine to stand here with a putter and go ahead and do a putt like that and roll it all the way there.
Okay, very interesting. While you're doing that, we would with Jeev Milkha Singh, I was just saying to Mitchell before, over here earlier, we had a quick chat with him. After we finished our chat, he was putting from off the greens, not using a 9-iron pitching wedge, and so sometimes the putter can be the safer option.
Yeah, it's definitely a safe option, and the only thing you need to do from a technical standpoint is just put the ball a little further forward in your stance so you feel like you're going to add a little bit more loft. It's almost you put your hands back, the ball forward, and so you just feel like you're going to hit up on the ball a little bit more, and that gives it a little bit more topspin and helps the ball run out. So it's a very safe option. If you get a tight lie on the fairway, if you're going over a little bit of a nodule, if you're not sure of how far it's going to release, or if it's windy and you don't want to get the ball up in the air, then using the putter, I mean, almost for everybody at home, I'd say go ahead and use the putter when you're playing links golf.
There we go. Tip number 2 from Mitchell. If you are going to use the putter off the green, no problem at all, but keep that ball a bit further forward in your stance. So
now if you are going to chip and run the ball, which is definitely more of a, what in America they would call this a European shot, a British shot. You know, I'm going to take a 9-iron here and I'm going to hit a little bump and run shot, just going to let it run. I'm not going to try and put any spin on the ball. I want the ball to land and release. So you can go ahead and take your setup like so, put the weight on the left side. It's a short little shot with everything together, and you're just trying to get the club right to the back of the ball. And you notice before I go, I'm always doing a few practice swings because I'm trying to get a feel for the weight of the shot. So you never just want to go up to a shot and hit it. You want to try and get a sense of a feel, visualize where you want to land it, which is just by the front edge of this green here, and then just go ahead and just give it a little kick and a little run. And
that wasn't fair.
no, it was probably going in the hole. But you know what happens is there is no right and there is no wrong. There's nothing I have to go over, so I can play whatever shot I feel like. And quite frankly, maybe on Thursday you're nice and relaxed and you want to take your little pitching wedge. But if Sunday afternoon I was on the back of the green and the major championship was on the line, there's a good chance I'm probably going to pull the putter out. I mean, if we look back even, you know, to Tom Watson there when he was at the back of the green and he hit the putter from that lie that he had at Turnberry, it just shows you that there's no set have to do's when it comes to links golf, and I think that's what allows you the freedom to be so much more creative. And I think you find your game here, and I think we might find someone this week who's, you know, having a so-so year, maybe have a great week because they're just enjoying the experience of playing links golf.
Well, exactly. So there we go. Tip number 3 from Mitchell. There are no rules, and rightly so. You know, the great thing about links golf is you can be creative and imaginative, and you only have to look at Seve, a 2-time, 3-time Open champion, but 2-time here at Lytham, to just see how creativity can pay off. So just before we let you go, you've mentioned we might see some people come through the field this week. Who are you backing?
I think from the American perspective, I think Jason Dufner is really showing he's a tough player. I mean, he played well there at the PGA Championship last year and lost in the playoff. He had a good US Open this year. I know he's taken some time off between then and here, and he's been playing a few of the golf courses in the area, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him play well. I know he's missed the cut in the last couple of Opens, but I think that he's one of these strong, stocky guys that might do well if the weather conditions get a little more adverse. From a European standpoint, last year I said Westwood and Donald, and they both missed the cut, but you've got to believe one of these guys would, you know, show up and have some form there. And obviously Tiger Woods has just shown tremendous form this year with 3 wins already on the PGA Tour. Was right up there at the US Open after 36 holes, and the weekend didn't quite go his way, and I think he just got a little bit off. It would be interesting to see. I know he was low amateur here, I guess, when he first played here in '96, so he's obviously got some good memories of playing here. So
he really does. No, he really does. He said this week, you know, that low amateur in '96 has given him some really fond memories of Lytham. And funnily enough, it was what was convinced him to turn professional. Can you believe? As if Tiger Woods needed much to convince him. But talking of Tiger, talking of Tom, there have been a few American champions here at Lytham. Tom Lehman in '96, David Duval in 2001. Jason Dufner has obviously had a fantastic year as well. So, you know, it's not all about the Europeans and the links. The Americans can still do it, and they really have done here before.
Sure, I think Lytham probably shows that. I mean, obviously Seve won here a couple of times, and Gary Player won here, and Bob Charles. So it's been an international bunch of players that have won here. And in fact, my Aunt Marley won the Ladies British Championship here in 1964, which I saw up in the clubhouse, which was nice to see.
Oh, would you believe it?
Yeah, so, you know, it's a golf course which I think you can very much fall in love with, because it is a beautiful look out there, I must say. I mean, if your game is on and you've got the right look and the right feel going and your iron shots are dialed in, then I think you can, you know, probably put some good scores up, because the greens aren't overly undulating. It's a good golf course. If you manage your game well and you manage yourself well, then you can put yourself right there or thereabouts.
Okay, last thing, very last thing, I'm going to let you go. Short game, we are in the short game section. How important is it going to be this week? Do you have to have a good short game to win here at Lytham?
Oh, I think you need a good short game to win tournaments. Having said that, though, Jack Nicklaus used to turn around and say, if you hit 15 or 16 greens around and you hold everything inside of 10 feet wide, you need a good short game. And there is some truth to the fact that if you hit the ball closest to the target, then you don't. Having said that, it keeps the momentum of a round going. If you're having a good round and you get a bad break and you go in a bunker, or you run through the green and you can get that shot in and make the putt, then it just keeps it going. So I think that's where short game is important. You can't do it the whole way around the golf course. I think it might get you by the end.
Very interesting. Mitchell Spearman, thank you very much. That was our coaching corner with Mitchell Spearman. And look, we did have a little bit of a corner behind us and a few fans that may well have picked up on a few of Mitchell's tips. We'll be seeing you all week, I hope, tipping in now of his big brain full of golf knowledge. So thank you very much. Back to you guys for now.